as we come up on that intersection, I happened to turn and looked at my mom, and about that time, Maddie kicked my seat. And I was turned like that, and I was like, "What do you want, pumpkin pie?" And she said, "I love you." And I looked at my mom and her facial expression. And when I turned, I could just see the truck. The front end of the truck was already at my door, so I was kind of like turned in the seat like this. And when I went to look, you just heard the engine roar, and that's when it hit us.
She said she's not breathing. I said, "Who's not breathing? What happened? What's wrong?" And she said, "You need to come to where we are." And I said, "Okay, I'm on my way." And so I pinpointed her location, and we left immediately. And I'm just shaking. Adrenaline's pumping. My mouth is super dry, and I'm flying down roads, in and out of traffic, trying to get there as quick as I can.
Fire and water me, going down deep. Sing, oh, oh, bury me, carry me, oh, oh, far beneath, oh, oh, fire and water me, watching me sink, everything free, yeah. Oh, everything free, down to the river. Down to the river.
Welcome to another episode of Sheepdog and Shepherd. My name is Greg. I'm one of your co-hosts, and we're here in Woodbine, Georgia at the Church of 1122's beautiful retreat center.
Super special location to my personal family. We fled Connecticut and we moved out to the beautiful state of Florida, and we became part of the Church of 1122. We were Catholic, and now we actually have a relationship with Jesus. This church has been absolutely instrumental in that for us. There was one moment in particular about a year ago where my wife and I were invited to be a part of this retreat, and we came out here and we spent a lot of time with Pastor Joby talking specifically about some family situations for us involving forgiveness and reconciliation and how they're not the same thing. Beautiful property, so grateful that the church opened up their home to us. Guys, I'm just honored and humbled to have you out here. We've been talking online for probably almost a year now, and not an easy story to tell, and I'm so grateful that you're willing to share it. So why don't we talk about, first of all, who you guys are?
My name is Chris Hines. This is my wife, Chelsey. We are the parents of Madison Hines, our daughter who was killed in a car accident in October 8th of 2023. And so we have used that story to turn it into a sign of triumph and testimony for Jesus Christ.
You've got another beautiful little girl here with you today. Let's talk about your whole family first, and talk about upbringing and you raising your kids in faith and that whole backstory.
So we have Kinsley here with us. My son Carson was not able to make it. He is actually doing a BMW Scholars Program. And so they have hired him on as one of 32 to be a mechatronics engineer. And so he is there. He is working today. He kept saying he could come down later. But we do have Kinsley. We are homeschool parents for the first time this year. So that's amazing. It's a blessing to be able to pour into her and into our kids. I think we are blind date results. So we met many years ago, and through a blind date. I have lived in South Carolina my whole life. Grew up in a church family and a church home. Was brought up understanding what a relationship with Christ meant, and really had that instilled at a very young age. So I think it's really important that we carry that through to our children, make sure that they have a relationship and that they understand who God is in their life and not just what the world tells them.
It must have been a blind date for you because, bro, you married like way out of your league.
Outkick my coverage, they say.
But I think it's absolutely beautiful how you've had Christ at the center of your family, not just of your marriage, not just of your dating life, but at the center of your entire family. Let's talk about that day and what was happening and the celebration that was happening that day, and then what happened from there.
Yeah, so that day was a day of excitement and new beginnings. That day was Carson's 18th birthday. It was the day that Kinsley was baptized, and then it was also the day that we had the accident. We lost Madison, and so we had, and I think it's to me, I always look back to see God's fingerprints on everything, because He's always in the details. And so, prior to the accident, Chelsey had retired from work, so she got to spend 4 months at the house with Madison every day, because she would stay home while Kinsley went to school. And then my dad was also in town from Las Vegas for Kinsley's baptism. And so I think that was God bringing our family together and preparing us for that time, so that we would all be together.
Walk me through that day if you can.
Like he said, it was a very joyous occasion. We have a favorite Mexican restaurant. Everybody has a favorite spot they go to, and we have a favorite restaurant. So October is a super busy month for us. We have my dad's birthday. 3 days later is Carson's birthday, and 6 days later is Madison's birthday. So we were all celebrating all of those events. So after church, getting ready for church is kind of crazy when you have multiple kids. So we were getting ready for church, trying to leave, do all the things. After church, after celebrating Kinsley and the baptism, we went to celebrate as a family birthdays and special occasions. And
give us ages too, I'm sorry.
So, my dad, I love you too much to tell. And then Carson was 18, and Kinsley would have been, we were celebrating her 4th. She had not turned 4 yet.
We were celebrating her 4th birthday.
Oh, sorry, yes. We were celebrating Madison's 4th birthday. And so we were at the restaurant hanging out. We had a lot of our friends beside us, our family. Like he said, his mother actually had moved here recently from Arizona, so she lives here with us too. We just had all of our family hanging out. We went to the Mexican restaurant. You know how they like to go around, put sombreros on your head and put the whipped cream or whatever on your face. And it was hilarious because I still remember that day, like that's Madison's personality. She was so excited. She's like, yeah, I got a hat, And then they did that, and she was like, and flipped out and threw the hat, and she got so upset. It embarrassed her so bad. But that's just something, it was just neat to spend time with family, but we didn't know that like tragedy was shortly up ahead. And I think that's important because as Christians, we don't know when we're going to fall into something, right? We're always either like coming into a hard time, coming out of it, or we're in the middle of a storm, and you're not realizing that you're about to walk through that.
Yeah, and so we ate, we went back to the house, we were relaxing, and then I don't know why, but I wanted to go to the store to look at rubs to cook barbecue. And so my dad, Carson, and we left, leaving Chelsey, Kinsley, and Madison at the house. And so we pull in to the store, and I get a phone. Well, let me take a step back. Well, I left the house, and Chelsey calls me, and she says, hey, I'm going to ride with my mom to go over to Nancy, Chelsea's grandmother's house, and visit for a little while, but we'll be back. And I was like, no, don't go. I don't think you should go. And she was like, no, it will be fine. We're going to go. And so I had pulled into a community park that we have, and I was going to turn around and go back and get them. But something in me said, no, they're going to be fine. Everything's going to be okay. And so I said, okay, we'll see you in a little while. We're going to go to the store. And so I left. I pulled out and continued on the journey. When I got to the store, I had a phone call from Chelsey, and I picked it up. And it was just the most panicked voice and chaotic sound I'd ever heard in my life. And in that moment, you just feel hollow. And I remember hearing Chelsey say, we were in a wreck. It's really, really bad. She's not breathing. I said, what? And she said, she's not breathing. I said, who's not breathing? What happened? What's wrong? And she said, you need to come to where we are. And I said, okay, I'm on my way. And so I pinpointed her location, and we left immediately. And I'm just shaking. Adrenaline's pumping. My mouth is super dry, and I'm flying down roads, in and out of traffic, trying to get there as quick as I can. And so it takes me about 10 to 15 minutes to get there. And as I approach the intersection where it happened, it's just lights everywhere, fire trucks, cop cars, ambulances. And so I pull off in the grass across from the scene, and I run to the vehicle.
So my side of that would be that my mom had called and asked for my assistance to go talk with her grandmother, her mom, my grandmother, and said, we're not doing anything. It won't take long, will it? No, it's not. Let's go get in the car. I'll come pick you up. I said, okay. I was going to take some eggs to a family friend. So we decided, instead of taking, there's two main roads that can go into town. Basically, we say town because we live in the country. And instead of going the main route that we would usually take, I wanted to take eggs that we have, farm fresh eggs, and take them to a friend. So we went the back way. And my mom pulled up, the girls ran, they got in the car. Usually, kids fight over where they're going to sit in Nana and Papa's car. But usually Kinsley and Maddie, they have a certain seat. And for some reason this day, Maddie was like, no, I'm supposed to sit there. And she moved seats with Kinsley.
Yeah. I remember Teresa saying that Kinsley said no, and Maddie said, no, Kinsley, it's my turn to sit there today. I'm going to sit there. We
started down the road. The girls are in the back. They're just singing, carry on, hanging out. And me and my mom just talking, catching up. And not like I don't talk to her 3 or 4 times a day, that's, but we're just hanging out, talking. She was showing me some papers, so I was reading over some things that we were going to talk about. And I could see her facial expression. So typically she had asked, do you want to take the girls to church? We were right at the intersection, almost to the intersection when we would turn and go to our church, and choir was going on. And they were very active in our church. And I said, no, they can just go with us. It'll be fine. It's not going to take long. We'll go right back. It's fine. So we kept going past that intersection. And at the next one is the main entrance to our church. As we come up on that intersection, I happened to turn and looked at my mom. And about that time, Maddie kicked my seat. And I was turned like that. And I was like, what do you want, pumpkin pie? And she said, I love you. And I looked at my mom and her facial expression. And when I turned, I could just see the truck. The front end of the truck was already at my door. So I was kind of like turned in the seat like this. And when I went to look, you just heard the engine roar, and that's when it hit us. I think the main thing is, like, a lot of people have a chance to say goodbye, and a lot of people don't. And I had the chance to tell her I loved her right before she passed. I remember the sound. It was like, you think about movies where you hear that like explosion, and then it's just like the beat and it's quiet. That is exactly, I think I was knocked out. And then I just come to, I heard screaming. Kinsley was not knocked unconscious. So she was seeing everything that happened. In those moments, I think adrenaline, kicked in. So I could not breathe. I felt like I had a huge weight on my chest. I remember just telling my mom, I was like, I can't breathe, and I was trying to gasp for air. And she was pretty much out of it. My mom has a port, and she has another port in her arm. She's going through some treatments. So I knew she was she was out of it. Kinsley was screaming that her arm was broke. She already knew. She was like, my arm is broke, my arm's broke. And I heard my mom, and she said, Maddie. And when I looked, by this time, I'm like laid over almost in my mom's lap. And I looked behind me, and I just see Maddie looking down. And I knew it was really, really bad. So I was trying to get to her. And so Kinsley was helping me unbuckle the seatbelt. She wasn't really saying anything, but I just remember I said, I can't get to her. And I was trying to open my door. I have no clue how I did it, but I was able to open our car door. I tried to go to the back to reach in to get her out. Nobody prepares you for the chaos that takes place. And I did not understand how to move the airbag and all the things. So I climbed back in the seat, and I put my knees in the seat, and I was trying to reach to grab her. And I didn't understand. I could not pick her up. Physically, I could not. And I didn't realize I had multiple broken ribs. I had a punctured lung.
Lacerated liver.
I just didn't understand why I wasn't in that moment. You feel like, oh, I can do anything, but I couldn't. So I couldn't get to her. And the next thing I know, I heard a man, and that was Robin. And he is a very good friend of ours now. And he was a bystander. And he came around the side of the car, and he immediately noticed my mom. And living in a small town, he knew her. And he said, Teresa, what do you need? And she said, get the baby. So I was trying to find, once I knew, like, he had her and he got her out, I was trying to find the phone to figure out what to do. I did not realize that Kinsley had went with Robin. And she was holding Maddie's hand. She was telling her she loved her. And Robin was doing CPR on Maddie. About that time, I finally got Robin's phone. I got my mom's phone. I was trying to call Chris. I called him. I called my dad. Just let him know what was going on. It was pretty much like call, hang up, call, hang up. I turned back, and Maddie was throwing up. And I didn't realize at the time that was just, she wasn't there. And Robin had stopped doing CPR, so I tried to take over to do it. And about that time, one of the paramedics showed up on the scene. She came and she just grabbed Maddie from us, and I was trying to follow. She said, I got her, and she just ran, just holding her. She just ran to the ambulance. Another person had came and taken Kinsley, had her sitting away from all the chaos. I went to the back of the ambulance. I don't know how I made it there. And I opened the back of the ambulance door because I was just wanting to go, like, just let me go with you. And they had stopped working on Maddie. So I think in that moment, I knew that Maddie was gone, but my body wasn't processing that. And she just looked at me. I remember nothing about this girl other than this part of her eyes. And she kept saying, close the door. It's okay, close the door. And I don't know why, but I just listened. I closed the door, and I walked back towards the vehicle, and I collapsed in the field. And that's when the paramedics come over to me, and they started working on me, and they said that they were going to airlift all three of us, myself, my mom, and Kinsley. And I just kept saying, take my mom first, because I didn't know what all was going on with her. She still had not made it out of the vehicle, so I was just like, take my mom, take my mom. My dad ended up coming up the next, asking where Maddie was, and I said, she's already left in the ambulance. And he said, the ambulance is still here. And about that time, the paramedic, she came back over to me. And I think as a mom, she knew what I was going through, and she knew that she had to come make sure I was okay. Not physically, but emotionally. So she just came over and she was grabbing my face and rubbing my face. She said, it's okay, I need you to calm down. And I said, you have to say the words. I need to hear you tell me. And she just kept shaking her head. And I think it's because they were waiting on the coroner to get there. She kept shaking her head. I said, I need you to say the words. And she said, Maddie's gone. And about the same time that she said that, I could hear our family members that had made it there scream. And that was the last thing that I remember at that moment, is just that horrific scream in the background. And I thought it was me, but it wasn't. I remember being in the helicopter and they couldn't get the IV to stick. And one of the people was like, just don't worry about it. And I was thinking, like, in that moment, like, oh, okay, yeah, don't worry about me. Like, you know what? And it just kind of like took me by surprise. Don't worry about it. They'll do it when she gets there. There's other things. And then I heard him say, I think she has internal bleeding. And so in that moment, I was like, fight or flight mode. Well, my kids aren't going to have a mom. And I think your brain goes through all these emotions of, oh my gosh, like, what am I going to say to my kids? What would they remember me? I remember getting off, and they're wheeling me out, and my cousin met us. She works at the hospital, and she was right there. So I just started saying, like, tell my family I love them. Tell my kids I love them. And she said, stop. She said, everything's fine. I said, go find Kinsley. I just remember being in the ICU room. I mean, that's the most humbling thing, just stripped down, and you're just laying there emotional, and they're telling you, you need to hold your breath. We need to put you through this scan. And you're like, I can't breathe right now anyways. How am I going to hold my breath for long? I think that was the most lonely time I've ever felt. Probably it's so bad to say, but it was also the most peaceful, if that makes any sense. I think in those moments, God stepped in, and he was like, obviously it's not your strength, but it's mine. This is something that I will carry for you. I remember my pastor coming in, and he leaned down and he kissed my head. And it just said, is it normal to feel this way? And our pastor is like super hilarious. And he said, yeah, wait, how do you feel? Like, he was like, wait. And I said, I feel really at peace. He said, when you know where your kids are, you feel peaceful. And I think that just really stuck with me, is we know where Maddie is. And I know that she was in the best place possible. Even though I wanted her here, he had her taken care of. And so,
let's talk about the aftermath.
ooh.
How quickly did time fly? Did it not? What happened? Was there a court case? Like, walk us through what happened after.
Yeah, so, excuse me. After the accident, Chelsey spent 3 days in the hospital, 4 days in the hospital, and we hadn't told Kinsley that Madison had passed because we weren't allowed to go into, as a family, into the ICU room where Chelsey was. And so I wanted Chelsey and our family to be a part of that, to show her that we're all there for her and we're all there because of God. And so once we were able to do that and to tell Kinsley that, you know, this is your family, we love you, we're here for you. Maddie didn't pass, but God has great plans for us and for you, and he loves you, and we're going to get through this through him. That was really important to us. After that, there was a trial. It was in December of 24. The guy was arrested. He was charged with vehicular homicide. He turned out to be an illegal immigrant an illegal alien from Honduras, maybe. And so he initially, right after the accident, he was held in the local Lawrence County Detention Center. And there was an ICE hold. So they were going to come get him and take him out because they set a $50,000 bond on him. And he made bond. Somebody in the next city paid for his bond. We don't know who or how, but somebody paid for him to get out. And so he was going to get out. And so we had an emergency hearing called with our solicitor, our prosecutor, and the sheriff in Lawrence County. Those two men, tremendous men, and I have a great amount of respect and reverence for them.
Our sheriff,
Don Reynolds.
Don Reynolds. I come walking in the courtroom, and I was having the walker.
Walker, yeah.
Come walking into the courtroom in a walker, and the main thing I remember is they called our case. Other cases are going on. They called our case, and our sheriff stands up and stands in the middle. And I was like, man, that's community. Like, he is fighting for us. And I think, like, obviously, you know, you have a appreciation for law enforcement and the job that they do. But he was like, this is my town. This is a family that has impacted our community. This tragic accident has impacted and rocked the community in such a way. And I'm standing up for them. And I mean, that was like a big, like, oh my gosh moment for me.
To make sure justice was served.
Yes, that he was like, you're not taking this guy. And he wanted them to know, like, you're not going to take him. I will close he was ready to fight for us. You know, I will close down the doors there. I'm not going to let him in. And I was like, I want him on my side. You know, like, it was amazing just to feel that love. And not just from our church family and our friends, but from, like, the community, the support from them. Like, I mean, that was amazing.
Yeah. And so we had the emergency hearing with Solicitor David Stumbo on our side, and the judge revoked the bond. Mm-hmm. And so he was going to stay locked up until the court case. So it's funny, man. So it was a series of chapters, right, in this story. So the first chapter was the accident and getting through that recovery. And then it was waiting for the trial, and then having the trial, and then what's after that. And so, and through each one of those, you know, there's just a weight lifted off of these things. But so we had the trial in December 24. And everybody, the community showed up every day. It was 5 days, 3 days.
One day they all wore purple for Maddie. Mm-hmm. And whether or not they were there or they were in a classroom or they were at work, it was everybody posting pictures of them wearing purple.
A lot of the details I didn't know. I didn't want Chelsey to tell me about them. I just didn't want to know about those things, you know. And so to have to hear testimony and detail from, you know, medical examiners and coroners, and that was really hard.
At first I thought it was really selfish of him, because they had went previously the week before and asked him to just sign a plea deal, and they were saying, hey, we don't have to go to court, we won't have to put the family through this, and he just said no. Like, he wanted a trial. And I was like, man, this is so selfish that you're going to put us through that and make our family go through hearing all the details. And for me, like, family is everything. We still live on the same road as my parents, my aunts and uncles, my grandma. Like, we just bought land right there next to everybody. And I wanted to shield and protect them for what I knew happened. And, you know, I think making them go through those details, it was reliving what I knew happened. I just was, man, God, like, why are you wanting to put them through it? Let me carry it. One day, right before the hurricane hit, which was Helene, hit our area, I had went to our youth pastor, and we're all really good friends, and I told him, I said, listen, feel God telling me something. And I stayed up all night, and I couldn't sleep, and I had a weight on my chest all day. And he said, what time did you finally go to bed? And I told him. He said, so you're the reason I couldn't sleep last night. And we had laid in the bed talking, and I just kept this in. And he said, well, what is it? And I said, feel like God's telling me you should go witness to this guy that killed Maddie. And he said, no. Like, looked at me straight dead in the face. And he said, I have no ties to this guy. And I said, I know. But I, plain as day, know that that's what he told me. And I can't, as a Christian, sit back and not be obedient. And he said, Chelsey, I've really got to pray about this. I don't feel that. I don't feel that that's what God's telling me. So I got to pray. And I said, okay. And then, things happen, and the hurricane hit the area really bad. And with the church, he was out doing things left and right with the community. So that kind of got pushed to the side. So when we come through to this time, we're about to go through a trial, and I'm going to have to face this guy. That wasn't even in my mind that I have said that. We were at our church at one of the campuses, and a lady comes up to me, and she's sitting there talking. She's the sweetest girl. We have a really good relationship now, but she said something to me, and she was talking about another case a long time ago that happened in our area, and how she got to see that woman. And then when that woman come in, she said, God draws a line in the sand with people like that. Yeah. And I said, yeah. And immediately I was shaking my head, and I was like, no, he doesn't. And I think that's when God spoke to me, and he said, God doesn't draw the line in the sand with these people. I dictate who does that. I dictate who draws the line, and I sent my son for everybody. Whether or not they've committed a horrible crime or they've sinned, it's all the same. My sin is the same. I had what I wanted to write at the end of the trial during sentencing, and I went home and I completely rewrote it. And I sent it to our youth minister at the time, a good friend of ours. I sent it to him, and I said, I need you to print this because I don't want anybody seeing it before time. And I said, if you read it, it's fine. Just overlook the grammatical errors. And he said, okay, do you need anything else? And I said, no, that it wasn't you that was supposed to share the gospel. I think he set it up so that I could. So I think that was you question, and you in these time frames in this season, as you walk through it, you're kind of questioning why do you make us go through this? Why do you make us do this? Well, it's because through our pain, we're able to share Christ with someone else. Mm-hmm.
She's going to do this. You guys are incredible in your strength together, how you handled telling your other daughter as a family. What's going through your head during this?
So at that moment, I wasn't at the same. I wasn't lockstep with Chelsey in my in what I wanted to say to the man. During the trial, he never said a word. There was no remorse. There was no I'm sorry. There was nothing. Just a cold stare. He had a joke. Or a joke, yeah.
With the judge.
He would walk in the morning and say, "Hey, good morning, Judge. How are you doing?" And just sit down. Mm-hmm. It was I didn't understand it, but he would have I think that some of the few words that he could say, because he had a translator and everything was translated for him. But I wasn't at the same point yet, and so my victim impact statement to the judge and jury was more along the lines of who Madison was to us, how much she meant to us, how this man had shown no remorse, and how that I knew that Madison was in a much better place, but it didn't take my earthly pain away, and how I felt that he deserved to be sentenced to the max. And then Chelsey got up and really hit a home run, and the strength that she has, it's an inspiration to me. And I was telling some friends the other day, it's how thankful I am how men should be so thankful for the spiritual strength that their wives have, because they turn us into, or they lead us to become more spiritual and stronger. And so, I've been so blessed in my life. I made so many mistakes and done so many wrong things, and I'm just so blessed that I have Chelsey and Kinsley and the gift that Madison was. And now it's my turn to be that strength, that spiritual strength and foundation through Jesus Christ in our family. And I'm just so thankful.
Had either one of you found forgiveness, or were you relying on faith?
I think in the moment of when I felt like I was shown like God doesn't draw the line in the sand, I think it's not up to me anymore to harbor or hold anything against this man. He showed that he had no remorse. He showed that on his face he didn't care. He could listen through Maddie's injuries. He could listen through the graphic details that they shared and not even lift an eyebrow. Like there was nothing. And I think when in that moment I thought, and that's why I told him, I said, after today I will never speak your name again. Like, it's not up to me anymore. What you take with you, this information I'm going to give, and we'll just call it done. But I think God offers forgiveness, and it's not for the other person. It's for yourself. And I think I offered that, and I allowed God to grant me that forgiveness so that I could be used for him. And I think that's the difference, is like a lot of times we hold on to bitterness and we hold on to resentment and we hold on to these things because that's what the enemy wants us to do. He wants to render us useless. And he doesn't want us to benefit the kingdom. He doesn't want us to be kingdom impact. He doesn't want that. He wants us to live in fear. He wants us to live in confusion. He wants us to get caught up in the why did this happen to Madison? I think people get confused with scripture, how it talks about, we were talking about the other day how, which one was it? I'm so sorry. I went blank. Where he talks about good, for my good and your glory, for your good and my glory. So when God is talking in scripture and he's telling us, I'm going to use this for your good and my glory, it isn't that this is going to feel good. It doesn't always mean that this is going to mean that you're going to get everything you want. That's not what it means. It means that I'm going to work through every single situation to give you strength, because you can't do anything on your own, but I can do it through you if you allow me to.
And I think we pray that, the man that was responsible for the accident comes to know Jesus Christ and uses this as a testimony to be impactful wherever he goes, right? I don't harbor any ill will towards the man. I've forgiven him. I know Chelsey has. I just pray that he's impacted. He comes to know Jesus Christ, and God uses him for further impact.
I'm going to ask a question that I've been challenged on in my faith many times, which is, why do you believe that God allows bad things to happen to good people?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was just having a conversation. And I'm a firm believer that God's always in the details. His fingerprints are everywhere. And if you just stop and look at it, you'll see his handiwork everywhere. You'll see his touch. And so we were getting ready to come here today, and I got a text from a friend of mine from college, from Ole Miss. I haven't talked to the guy in 4 years, maybe. And he texted me out the blue, "Hey, what are you up to nowadays?" And I said, "Oh, hey, no, we're in Georgia, getting ready to go do a podcast. This is what's going on." and we start to talk, and I tell him about Madison, and I tell him about this, that, and the other, and he tells me that his dad 2 years ago had just committed suicide, and I didn't know about that. He didn't know about my situation, and he says, I said, well, I don't know why bad things happen, but I know God has a purpose, and He uses those to give us strength in our faith to be impactful to others and to help to come alongside and walk with them to see them through those things. And that's what he was asking me. Why did these things happen? I don't know why they happened. That was his main question. And so it's funny that you mentioned that, because that's something I've been thinking about this morning too. And so my answer would be, he uses these situations to give us perseverance, strengthen our faith, to come alongside fellow people, believers, to see them through, to also encourage and develop spiritual foundations so that they too can be saved if they don't have a walk with Jesus. That's what I believe.
I think too, if you think about it, so if you sit and think about, we all have a purpose. And when that purpose is complete, God calls us home. Like, I firmly believe that. And I believe we all have a time appointed unto us to die. Like, I believe that. So who are we to sit back and say that God doesn't have it all together, or that He doesn't know exactly what's going to happen? Do I think He wants bad things to happen? No. He loves us. And I think that's why He created us, right? He wanted good for our lives. He wanted good for us. And that is seen at the beginning of Scripture. And if you look in the first 3 chapters, that's what I told our youth group. One time I was up and I was speaking to them, and I stood up and I said, these first 3 chapters are what God intended for us. Mm-hmm. The rest of this is us messing it up.
That's right.
So if we sit back and look, it's not that He did any of this. It's that He allows things to happen to grow us, and to also in return bring glory to Him. So Chris was asking me the other day, if you could bring Maddie back, would you? I said no. And I know that selfishly, yes, I would love to have her back here with us. But in the same sense, she's in an amazing place.
She's with the Father. That
I can't wait to go to one day and experience His love and peace and who He is, and just how amazing He is. And I think about our purpose here on earth is to bring other people to know Him so that they have that promise past the grave. So we're not, it's not just you live and then you die and then nothing. It's you live and you die and you live forever with Him.
First of all, you're incredible. You're a rock. You are too, but man, I'm trying to understand you. Because I think about myself as a dad, as a husband. Someone didn't let me merge today on the road and I almost killed them, right? I've got dad rage built up in me. And if I think about, God forbid, being in that situation, I couldn't be here like this. I couldn't take that time, watch what my family went through, her recovery, and sit back. I don't know that I could just walk blindly in faith. Your strength, your faith is just one man to another man. It's mind-blowing. How did you get there to that point? Because I'd probably be in prison or a mental institution.
Yeah, no. Well, thank you. And it's not anything that I've done. It's Jesus Christ. And I spent a lot of my life that way. Doing the wrong thing, being angry, hurting people, and that's how I lived a lot of my life. But when that happened, I was completely broke. That completely broke me, tore me down to the ground. Like, I in that instance, I was in the car with my truck gun, and I thought about ending my life. Like, it was a bad time in my life. But I knew that God had plans. I knew that Maddie was gone. And I don't want to be separate from her eternally. And I know that she's with Jesus. I know I'm going to be there too, but I'm going to make sure that I can bring other people with me, because nobody deserves that. No family deserves that, to have that eternal separation from Jesus Christ. That's just something I don't think a lot of we don't comprehend that. As I spent a lot of my time, money, things, material things that at the end of the day, they don't mean anything. I can't take them with me. I'm not going to join them later. What matters is family, the memories, the impact we've had to other people that we've led to salvation, and then getting to heaven and saying, well done, my good and faithful servant.
I'll let you dive into the nonprofit with them.
Yeah, before we do that, I just want to kind of reiterate a little bit of what he just said. I think, going back to what you said as a dad, the difficulty of trying to reconcile the peace of Christ and understanding that where our peace comes from, and balancing how to react in the flesh as a dad. I mean, that the reality of wanting to act out for justice is a human fleshly desire, but recognizing that we're called as followers of Christ to follow him. I mean, if we're truly disciples, if we're truly followers of Christ, we're called to emulate what he is. And if our life is truly surrendered to him, then we can't walk the path of the flesh. And so, man, I commend you as a husband and a father for emulating Jesus through this whole process. It's not easy as a father to want to enact justice and still be able to maintain the Christian walk. And as a mother, I know it's difficult, but I'm praying for you guys. I know Kyle's praying for you guys. I'm sure it's still very, very difficult, as we've seen in your reactions today, as you recall the stories, and I'm sure it'll continue to be difficult. But share with us a little bit about, is it a 501c3?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, share a little bit with us about what you guys have done with that.
So we started Like Maddie, and it is our nonprofit organization. And originally it was we just thought of ways right after Maddie had passed at Christmas. We were thinking, okay, well, what can we do to make an impact for her for Christmas? And we had given a friend who was kind of going through a hard time Maddie's Christmas money that we would have spent on her to help with things that she needed. And that kind of sparked something in us. And we were like, well, what if we did something more than that? And so as we started thinking, I guess it would have been, that was October, Maddie passed. In January, we started Like Maddie. And it has really evolved as we have trusted God and prayed. We're not even at the 2-year mark yet. But so we started a Maddie scholarship, and it's making a difference daily, inspiring everyone. And so it's not really about good grades and being academically sound. It's more of like what you're doing when no one's watching. What type of person are you? How are you making an impact in your community? And that can be someone has, nominated you for this scholarship. It is for a senior. Or it can be that you enter it yourself. So you can submit a statement, submit a video, of explaining, how are you making an impact? What are you doing? And then, what's your testimony? Share ways that you've loved like Maddie, that Maddie was just, she never met a stranger, kind of like that one over there. She loved to be around people. She gave like really, really good hugs and just full of life, and
she loved the Lord. She loved the Lord.
Yes,
she was always singing Bible songs. Like, she had this book. We bought her this book off of Amazon or whatever, and you would press the buttons and be like, ho, 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 Hosanna, ha, ha, hallelujah, or the B-I-B-L-E. And she listened to it so much that the musical portion of it fell off the book. She just put the book down and she would just lay on the couch listening and singing. She loved that VBS songs. We would buy the
raise her
DVD.
hands
She would
and praise.
Yeah, she loved the Lord.
It was really neat. She wanted very competitive. So she wanted to be the first one to tell her teachers that she knew her Bible verse for Awanas, like, I know it, can I say it, let someone else go first. And
She's
she would
3
sit there and
years old
pout,
at this time,
so. Oh, and she hated that. She wanted to be 4 so bad, like you would say, oh, you're 3, I'm almost 4. But she was just a character. And I think making sure that we shine who Jesus is in our lives, because for her to be such a young age and to praise the Lord like she did, it inspired us. Like, the way that when she passed away, the community,
the impact,
there were so many people that got saved.
At her service, at her funeral service.
And I think if that was me and I would have gotten saved, would I have made an impact the way that she did? And if I didn't, then what am I doing? And so that kind of like just sparked this initiative in us. And so we have that. The other thing we're wanting to do is, starting in January, we're starting a discipleship program. So we are going to start pouring back in to kids, mentoring to them, sharing with them what it means to be a disciple, and then giving them the tools to go out into the community and actually live that. We would like to be able to have a facility one day, and with that we can host our events. We currently have like a Love Like Maddie Family Fun Day where the community comes out. We're doing a worship night for I guess it would more so be from 12 to like 20. And when you think about kids nowadays, they're getting into more and more at such a young age. And I think about, what do we need to do? How can we meet a need? And it's to instill faith into them, to let them know that, hey, this is where you run in times of trouble. It's not who society says you are, or what they're pushing you to be or feel. It is grounded in who you are in Christ, and that when trials and situations arise and when something happens that is sent to destroy you, you know where to stand. Mm-hmm. And so, those mentorships and those discipleship programs are just one of our ways that we can just instill that into our youth today, and just make sure that they know the love of Christ,
Exactly.
How can people learn more, and where can they contribute?
So they can learn more at lovelikemaddie.com, and then we also have a Facebook page as well. It's just Love Like Maddie on our Facebook.
Greg?
Yeah, so really interesting, the comment you made about the number of people that got saved at Maddie's funeral. Our church, early on in its early years, there was a young girl named Mackenzie Wilson that died at a very young age. And her life and her legacy was very instrumental in the foundation of our church because of her faith. And a lot of young people came to salvation through her life. And when we talk about, you mentioned the scripture about God using things for our good, but for His glory. The reality of our lives is, because of God's sovereignty, this life that we live is not about us. No. Everything is about God and for His glory. And a lot of people just can't understand, especially if they're living such an egocentric life, that life's just not about them. Life is about, our lives are about being focused on pointing people to Jesus. And so when you when you focus your life on pointing people to Jesus and understanding that everything that God does is for His glory. You look at Maddie's life and you look at how it impacted people at her death and how many people were brought to salvation for that. And when you look at the life of Mackenzie Wilson and how her life impacted people to turn to Jesus, I bring all that up because without Mackenzie Wilson's life, the Church of 1122 wouldn't really be where it is right now. It had such a profound impact on our lead pastor, Joby Martin, when he founded the church and when he started the church, that he still talks about that to this day, about how it shaped the way he preaches and the way he focuses on the next generation of teenagers that are coming up. So I just want to encourage you that as painful as the situation is for you, knowing that so many people were saved at Maddie's funeral and have eternal salvation because of her life, you can rest knowing that there's going to be a lot of people that Maddie welcomes into heaven because of her life and legacy.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I know that she's got several crowns and she's laying them at our Savior's feet and just worshiping Him. So, yeah, I can't wait to get to heaven to see Jesus and to be reunited with Maddie.
Website one more time.
lovelikemaddie.com.
Guys, I just love you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you all for going and supporting this incredible organization, this incredible family, and the work that they're doing to honor God.
Most homeowners feel safe after locking their doors and setting their alarms. But alarms only alert you once somebody's already inside your home. And your doors, you can lock them, but the most vulnerable part of your home remains completely unprotected: the glass. Unprotected glass can be fully compromised after a single strike, leaving your home exposed in seconds. Glass is often never thought about until it's too late. Clear Armor Residential changes that. We strengthen your home where it matters most. For our installation process, we begin by measuring your glass to ensure an accurate fit and finish, and then we cut the material on site. Once the laminate is prepared for installation, we professionally clean the inside of your windows to ensure an optically clear look once the product is installed. Our team of experienced technicians then install the laminate on your glass with great attention to detail and precision. You're only billed for what's installed on your home, and you're never charged for any sort of wastage. Now, the most vulnerable part of your home is protected and will stay protected without any monthly fees or loss of power. Once installed, Clear Armor safeguards your home 24/7. Backed by a 10-year warranty, you can rest assured knowing your family and property are secure. If you're looking to have your home protected, visit us at clear-armor.com.